right, let's unpack this. We are diving headfirst into a Premier League fixture that delivered, well, arguably the most dramatic, nerve-shredding, and I think consequential finish of the season so far.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a result that has left one half of the fan base absolutely soaring on the back of Unai Emery's genius, and the other, well, staring into the abyss, fearing a familiar, painful collapse.
Indeed. What we have here is it's so much more than just a match report. It's a forensic examination of what feels like a really pivotal moment in the title race. We've compiled a stack of sources, minute-by-minute match reports, detailed tactical analyses from some respected pundits, comprehensive statistical breakdowns, especially around expected goals and player metrics, and crucially, the raw, unfiltered, emotional post-match commentary from both the Aston Villa faithful and the Arsenal supporters following that monumental 2-1 victory for Villa at Villa Park on Saturday, the 6th of December, 2025.
The atmosphere, the stakes, the actual timing of the winner, everything about this result felt seismic. It genuinely felt like a moment where the title race didn't just stumble. It was actively, wrestled away from the leaders in the 95th minute.
And our mission today is explicitly to go beyond that simple scoreline and really understand the architecture of this result. I mean, this deep dive is about dissecting the tactical masterclass that allowed Unai Emery to identify and exploit weaknesses in Arsenal's, well, what was a patched-up defense.
Right.
We need to identify the players who emerged the genuine heroes, the ones who struggled under the pressure, and analyze exactly what this means for the title race heading into the brutal, congested December schedule where, squad depth is tested to its absolute limit.
So for you, the learner who needs that high-level summary to anchor all this detail, Arsenal suffered their first league defeat since August, and it came via a devastating last-gasp winner from Emi Buendia. This result didn't just hand Arsenal a loss. It immediately propelled Villa into second place in the table, 3 points behind the Gunners, putting immense pressure on Manchester City, who were yet to play.
And crucially, it was a match that, by many objective measures, you look at XG and the overall chances, it felt like it was destined for a fair 1-1 draw. But it ended in explosive, historic fashion for the home side, cementing Villa's credentials as, well, genuine challengers.
Yeah.
The first 45 minutes, they really set a fascinating and often frantic tone for the whole match. It was filled with incident and, I think, early warnings for Arsenal, even before Villa managed to break the deadlock.
Oh, definitely. Early momentum is just key in these big fixtures, isn't it? And Arsenal thought they had found it very, very quickly.
They did.
That's right. Within the first 10 minutes, the away side believed they were ahead, but the goal, scored by Jurrien Timber, was correctly disallowed for a fractional offside call following a really detailed VAR check.
And that moment, that instant flash of excitement that just evaporated, it seemed to actually deflate Arsenal. It allowed the half to settle into a difficult, much more physical battle for the visitors.
I think you're spot on there.
And we really must acknowledge Arsenal's historical dominance here. I mean, they have racked up 15 previous Premier League wins at Villa Park, a tally that's only matched by their success at Selhurst Park. They should feel comfortable there.
They should, yeah.
Yet, it was the hosts, Aston Villa, who looked sharper, more physical, and who had a clearer, more ruthless game plan right from the first whistle. They forced Arsenal's goalkeeper, David Raya, into meaningful work very early on.
It's interesting you mention Raya. While we often focus on the central defensive issues, Villa's strategy involved this continuous pressure, stretching the defense laterally. We saw an immediate example of Villa's constant threat. I mean, even going back to a prior fixture where Ollie Watkins hit the post against the Gunners.
He's always a danger.
He constantly poses a danger, having now scored 6 goals in 10 Premier League games against Arsenal overall. He just occupies defenders and creates so much space.
Yeah, and while Watkins was the known danger man, the breakthrough actually came in the 36th minute from the right back, Matty Cash.
Right.
And the source material gave us a really crucial nugget of insight into this goal, highlighting a major early tactical weakness for Arsenal when the ball was shifted quickly out wide.
Okay, let's go through the anatomy of Cash's goal because I think it tells us so much about the consequences of Arsenal's rotation on the day.
Well, the play was remarkably straightforward and really efficient for Villa. A quick transition of play out to the right flank found Matty Cash arriving with pace. Arsenal's defense, which, as we said, was already looking slightly cobbled together due to injuries, completely failed to track that deep run at the far post.
It was a complete switch-off moment.
It was. The report noted specifically that the left-sided player, Jurrien Timber, who had significant defensive tracking responsibilities, just switched off, or was simply beaten for pace, allowing Cash to drill the ball in low past Raya.
It was a lapse in concentration, yes, but you feel it was also a direct tactical consequence of the high-pressing, highly physical game Emery had demanded from his team.
Absolutely. And that goal perfectly encapsulates the current confidence level at Villa Park. I mean, Cash is having a tremendous season.
Oh, blinder.
The fans were quick to hail him, pointing to his impressive average match rating of 8.32, with some suggesting he's currently playing as potentially the best right back in the league. It's that blend of defensive solidity and attacking output that makes him so dangerous.
So dangerous.
The statistics from the half confirm that despite Villa leading 1-0, the match was incredibly lively and open. Arsenal certainly had their moments, chief among them being Emi Martinez pulling off a sensational save, brilliantly tipping Martin Odegaard's powerful shot over the bar.
Right, so even though Villa were ahead, it was proper end-to-end stuff. A high-level, high-tempo battle.
It really was.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for the title race context, and this is where we have to drill down into that injury list. This game highlighted a structural fragility that Arsenal had, for the most part, managed to mask this season. This was only the fourth time since the start of the 2022-23 season that Arsenal had started a league game without either William Saliba or Gabriel Magalhães at center back.
That is a truly shocking statistic. It shows how much they rely on them.
A shocking lack of experience in that central pairing on the day.
And we need to break down why that defensive line was so unfamiliar. The absence of that main central pairing was compounded by the fact that Christian Mosquera had been ruled out for 6 weeks. This forced a massive chain reaction.
Okay, let's talk about that chain reaction, because it reads like a defensive puzzle that Arteta just couldn't solve without some kind of disruption.
Exactly. When Saliba and Gabriel are unavailable, Arteta is forced to reshuffle his entire stable structure. Ben White, who usually operates at right back, was needed centrally to maintain composure.
Right.
However, on this occasion, he was needed back at right back, which then necessitated Jurrien Timber, a player who was still integrating into the squad to partner Pau Torres at center back.
And Pau Torres is a fantastic defender,
But the lack of that vital, almost telepathic on-pitch relationship between him and Timber, or anyone else for that matter, was exactly what Villa, under the exacting standards of Unai Emery, were expertly placed to exploit.
And Emery knows Arsenal's personnel inside out.
Intimately. He targeted that disrupted backline from minute one.
So that's the crucial takeaway from the first half then. The goal wasn't just a simple lapse. It was the inevitable outcome of a defensive puzzle that didn't quite fit together, forcing defenders into roles or partnerships that just hadn't gelled. And that leads to that fatal moment of hesitation or miscommunication on the far post.
Spot on. The sight of Arsenal walking off 1-0 down must have been painful for the traveling fans. But it presented Mikel Arteta with a massive tactical opportunity at the break. He had to deliver more than just a motivational speech. He needed a structural overhaul.
And he delivered. We saw significant aggressive substitutions at halftime, which signaled an immediate and, renewed attacking intent. He didn't wait for the hour mark, did he?
Absolutely not. Arteta didn't wait around hoping for a change of fortune. He removed Mikel Merino and Eberechi Eze immediately and introduced the fresh legs and directness of Victor Gyökeres and Leandro Trossard.
And that move, it instantly injected pace, width, and a completely different dynamic into the attack. It shifted Arsenal from a slightly passive approach to outright aggression.
The response was almost instantaneous. Within 7 minutes of the restart, Arsenal were level. Leandro Trossard, a player who just continues to prove that he is one of the Premier League's most underrated attackers, scored his 6th goal of the season.
And a significant personal milestone, too, wasn't it? Marking his 50th Premier League goal overall.
It was. Trossard's impact was profound because he brings that clinical finishing and smart movement, forcing Villa's defensive line to drop deeper. His presence helped shift the attacking focus back to what Arsenal does best.
Right. You saw that familiar and potent reunion of White, Odegaard, and Saka on the right side.
Exactly. A trio that traditionally drives the majority of Arsenal's offensive play, combining those slick passes and quick triangles. They began applying significant suffocating pressure in that second half.
And for a stretch in the middle of that second half, it really felt like Arsenal had completely regained control, and that the breakthrough for 2-1 was only a matter of time. They were dominant, pushing Villa deep into their own half.
They were. But the game continued to be defined by moments of brilliant individual performance, especially in goal. Emi Martinez was yet again a crucial barrier, providing the kind of game-winning presence Villa fans have come to expect from him.
Another phenomenal stop.
He pulled off another one, tipping Martin Odegaard's curling shot over the bar. This save, right in the middle of Arsenal's purple patch, denied them a potential winner and kept Villa right in the contest. The margins truly were razor thin.
It's no wonder Villa fans singled him out for specific praise, noting he clutched up in those high-pressure moments. It just shows the value of having a goalkeeper who can pull off those match-defining saves when the team is under siege.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the match reports noted that both sides, particularly in the last 20 minutes, refused to settle for a draw.
Right.
And that speaks directly to the mentality Emery has instilled. He demands his teams push for the win until the very last second. That aggressive champion mentality is what led directly to the explosive, decisive sequence in the final moments of stoppage time.
Okay, let's transition now to the moment that stopped the league in its tracks. The 95th minute. Detail for us the chaotic, astonishing winning goal for Villa.
It was pure, beautiful chaos. A genuine testament to desire and a never-say-die attitude. The clock had ticked past 94 minutes, and the game should have been winding down, but Villa earned a final corner, or maybe it was a throw-in.
Yeah.
The ball was whipped into the Arsenal box, and the defending team failed miserably to clear the ball, not just once, but repeatedly.
It just became a pinball machine in front of David Raya, didn't it?
Precisely. Block shots, desperate lunges, defenders stumbling over each other. It was absolute pandemonium. But amid that scramble, Boubacar Kamara showed remarkable composure.
Even on the floor.
Despite ending up tangled on the deck, he somehow managed to hook or pull the ball out of the mass of bodies and direct it perfectly to the feet of a waiting teammate. That quick-thinking assist from a player who was essentially grounded was a moment of true grit.
And then the hero emerged, seizing the moment.
Emi Buendia. He received the ball in the box, with just enough space and time to take a touch and assess his options. He wasn't rushed. He curled the winner with his left foot, sending it past the helpless David Raya and into the net.
The very last kick of the game.
The last kick. Timed officially at 95 minutes and 5 seconds. The emotional impact was instantaneous and immense. It ended Arsenal's impressive unbeaten league streak that had stretched all the way back to their loss at Liverpool in August.
And Buendia's backstory, it adds such a rich layer of emotion for the Villa faithful, doesn't it? I mean, he was a player who many expected to depart in the summer, perhaps after that loan spell at Bayer Leverkusen.
You're right.
Now, he's lauded as the hero, the man who delivered the moment that truly put Villa into the title conversation. He earned the Player of the Match award with an average fan rating of 8.48, embodying that resilient underdog spirit that just defines Villa right now.
It was a goal that wasn't just scored. It felt like it was willed into existence by the team's persistence and mentality.
So if we look deeper than the goal scorers, beyond the emotional release of that 95th minute, the true underlying narrative here is Unai Emery's profound tactical understanding and how he executed, well, a masterclass to specifically unlock Arsenal.
That's the core finding of our sources. Emery didn't just rely on general effort or passion. He made calculated structural adjustments designed to exploit specific points of weakness in a high-performing Arsenal side. The key was overloading the central zones against Arsenal's slightly unfamiliar central defensive structure.
So how exactly did he manage that? Given Arsenal's reputation for defensive organization, even when they're missing players, where did he focus the pressure?
He achieved it by making these calculated positional tweaks that created, well, positional ambiguity for Arsenal's defensive midfielders. He deployed Jurrien Timber slightly higher than usual, effectively as a number 10, but crucially, he allowed the left winger, Morgan Rogers, to continually drift inside, often occupying the half space usually reserved for a second central attacker.
So instead of a rigid 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3, he was creating these temporary 3-on-2 situations in the most dangerous area of the pitch.
Exactly. This deliberate overloading created immediate, severe confusion for Arsenal's defensive midfielders, particularly Martin Zubimendi. He was constantly faced with split-second decisions. Do I track Tielemans, or do I cover the space that Rogers is vacating?
And that hesitation forces defenders like Timber and White to step out of their usual positions to compensate.
That seems like the perfect way to compromise a defensive pairing that is already lacking minutes together. You introduce chaos, and you rely on those split-second decision-making errors.
Exactly.
The tactical analysis highlighted one specific movement as pivotal, Rogers' in-to-out run. When Rogers started wide and then cut sharply into the channel, it dragged Jurrien Timber, who was playing out of position at center back, wider than he wanted to be.
Right.
This simple movement opened up crucial space right in the central channels behind the initial midfield screen. Arsenal's lack of familiarity meant the central midfielders weren't quick enough to slot in, and the center back was already dragged out, leaving these pockets of exploitable green space. Emery simply manufactured the defensive disruption.
That detailed analysis proves this wasn't just luck, it was a strategically planned breakdown. And the statistical evidence, it supports Villa's sustained dominance in generating high-quality chances.
The numbers are, as the sources state, inescapable. Villa's high expected goals, the XG, of 2.27 significantly outpaced Arsenal's 1.84.
A huge gap.
And XG is a measure of the quality of chances created, so a gap of almost 0.5 suggests Villa created significantly better shooting opportunities. Furthermore, Villa registered 43 total touches inside the opposition box compared to Arsenal's 33.
43 touches inside the opponent's box. That indicates immense sustained pressure in the final third.
And here's the most damning statistic for Arsenal's highly touted defense. Villa generated 5 more big chances than any other team had managed against Arsenal's defense this entire season.
Wow.
This just validates the success of Emery's aggressive, exploiting setup and highlights that while Arsenal's defense has been world-class, it is acutely vulnerable when key personnel are missing and, exposed by a specialist like Emery.
But let's play devil's advocate for a moment. Given Arsenal's overall defensive record, how does one game with 2.27 XG suddenly validate these sort of radical fan fears we're hearing about? Is the analysis giving Emery too much credit for what might just be Zubimendi having an unusually poor day in midfield?
That's a fair challenge, but the source analysis suggests it was a system failure, not just an individual one. The consensus is that Buendia's winner, specifically, which resulted from that chaotic scramble, would likely have been dealt with better had the preferred, established center-back pairing of Saliba and Gabriel been on the pitch.
Right. They bring a different kind of composure.
A level of anticipatory positioning and composure under pressure that prevents the initial failure to clear the ball. When you rely on less familiar pairings, a routine clearance turns into a frantic scramble, and a scramble turns into a goal. That's the crux of why this matters so much. The margins are that fine at the top.
Okay, switching focus to the attack. Arsenal fans are already deeply engaged in fierce internal debates about the optimal starting XEI following this loss. The Jesus versus Havertz debate seems to be central to this conversation.
It is dividing the fan base right now. On one side, fans widely believe Kai Havertz is currently performing better as a number 9 than when he's deployed in midfield, especially after recent positive performances there. Havertz seems to be finding his rhythm in that more advanced role.
Which puts Gabriel Jesus under the microscope.
Exactly. There is growing sentiment, backed by some statistics, that Jesus is simply not the consistent, clinical center-forward Arsenal need to win the title. The analysis notes that his knee injury continues to cast a shadow over his form.
You can see it.
To put a specific number on it, the stats show Jesus has only scored 3 goals in his last 15 appearances across all competitions. That is a stark contrast to his early season form and highlights that the physical and psychological impact of the injury noted in the reports is a very significant factor in his lack of consistent scoring output. Arsenal needs goals, and they aren't consistently getting them from their primary number 9.
And the criticisms extend beyond the forwards, don't they? They're reaching deep into the defensive setup, specifically targeting Alexander Zinchenko.
Concerns are mounting rapidly that Zinchenko is now too easily game-planned against. His inverted fullback role, which was revolutionary a couple of seasons ago, is now widely understood by opposition managers.
So other teams have figured him out.
They have. The sources note that pacey, direct wingers names like Diaby, Doku, and San are frequently cited as examples, make him a defensive liability due to his lack of raw recovery speed. And Emery, with his wingers, certainly targeted that area.
So his positional intelligence isn't enough to compensate for the pace deficit against these top-tier wide players.
That's the argument being made. His defensive weaknesses are now easily exploited by Premier League managers who have figured out how to play against him. Many fans, perhaps a bit rashly, are now suggesting he should potentially be sold, or at least rotated more heavily, to prevent him from becoming the perennial weak link that other teams exploit in these pivotal matches. This loss crystallized those long-standing fears. We've picked apart the players and the tactics, but now we must translate that chaos on the field into its immediate cold impact on the Premier League standings and the mental landscape of the title race. This result has fundamentally altered the top-end narrative.
Villa's surge is just undeniable. Following this monumental win, they temporarily moved into second place, applying immediate pressure on Man City. We have to talk about the consistency here. They have won 9 of their past 10 league games. This is beyond good form. This is sustained title-challenging consistency.
It forces the question, does this consistency mean they are genuine, verifiable title contenders, or is that still considered fanciful given their history and, external constraints?
While the narrative surrounding Villa has to be nuanced, while some punditry argues that title contention remains fanciful, citing concerns over squad depth compared to the behemoths of Arsenal or City, and external factors like their restrictions under profit and sustainability rules limiting January spending.
Right.
The actual facts of their on-pitch performance are, as the sources state, inescapable.
They are accumulating points at a champion's rate. Villa are now genuinely pushing the top two, and their fans are celebrating an almost instant transformation of mentality. That 95th-minute winner wasn't just 3 points, it was confirmation of a champion mentality, demonstrating the desire to push for the win until the clock expires. That psychological shift is priceless.
Now, let's turn the lens back to Arsenal. Is this loss simply a blip, an unfortunate consequence of defensive rotation, or does it hint at a familiar, painful pattern? They came into this game on a phenomenal high, having recently dominated teams like Bayern Munich and Tottenham Hotspur.
It's being viewed with extreme caution by the fan base, and it has already triggered a wave of what analysts are calling fan fatalism. A significant portion of the Arsenal faithful expressed disappointment that felt painfully reminiscent not of a one-off loss, but of previous late-season psychological collapses.
We're talking about the painful end to the 2021-22 top four race, and even more vividly, that slow, agonizing crumble during the 2023 title race run-in.
Exactly. The fear is palpable, isn't it? That deep-seated anxiety of, here we go again.
It is. Comments range from feeling the title is now cooked to a deep-seated fear of bottling it yet again when the pressure intensifies in the new year. There's a psychological layer here. This group of players needs a major trophy to cement their confidence, and the concern is that if they fall short 3 seasons in a row at the critical stage, the mental damage could be immense.
And the comparison to their main rivals, Manchester City, is constant, and for Arsenal fans, quite unflattering.
Absolutely. They are comparing their performance unfavorably to Manchester City's ability to come into form when they need to, and Pep Guardiola's ruthless rotation policy.
The critique is that City uses their deep squad to keep players fresh for the run-in, while Arsenal's key players look run into the ground by mid-December, leading to poor decision-making when fatigued, such as the defensive lapses we saw on Saturday.
This loss also affects City's mentality, surely. While they weren't playing Villa, watching Arsenal drop points and watching Villa establish themselves as a true third rival, that must impact Guardiola's tactical approach to their own congested fixtures.
Of course.
It turns a two-horse race into a triangular pressure situation.
It does. It validates City's approach and adds an element of immediate pressure on their upcoming fixtures. They can't afford to drop points knowing a newly emboldened Villa is right behind them, not just Arsenal. The margin for error is shrinking for everyone.
Let's review the immediate table status following the weekend's action. It's incredibly tight. Arsenal sit first on 33 points. Manchester City, having played the same number of games, 15, are second on 31 points. And Aston Villa are breathing down their necks in third place on 30 points.
It's incredible.
It illustrates just how quickly the momentum and destiny in this title race can shift with a single late goal. 2 points separate the top 3.
And this next immediate run of European and domestic fixtures will test the mentality and momentum of both Villa and Arsenal.
For Villa, their immediate challenge is Thursday's trip to Basel in the Europa League, a completely different atmosphere and demand, followed by a trip to struggling West Ham United in the Premier League. That West Ham game is highlighted as a key test of Villa's mentality.
It's the classic banana skin fixture. Can they apply the same energy and champion mentality they showed against the league leaders to a poorer team who might simply sit deep, frustrate them, and grind out a 0-0, 1-0 win? That shift in focus from hunting the leaders to maintaining their position is often the hardest mental test for an emerging title contender.
Meanwhile, Arsenal face a challenging midweek trip to Club Brugge in the Champions League before hosting winless Wolves in the Premier League. The urgency for Arsenal now is to ensure this doesn't become a prolonged downturn. They must use the Wolves game to immediately restore confidence and show that the Villa loss was just a single, isolated blip rather than the start of a trend.
And the key for Arsenal is navigating these European commitments without any further fatigue or injury, especially given the state of their central defense.
The fan reaction truly defines this deep dive because it encapsulates the sheer emotional weight carried by both clubs at this level. On the Villa side, the raw emotion was intense, capturing the spirit of a club that hasn't experienced this level of contention in recent memory.
Descriptions of Villa Park erupting after Buendia's winner are incredibly vivid in the sources. Fans shared specific anecdotes that really bring the stadium atmosphere to life.
Oh, I bet.
We read accounts of fans screaming and spilling drinks or coffee everywhere in the ensuing celebration. One particularly memorable comment came from a university student who noted they screamed so loud in their accommodation that staff actually came to check that they wasn't in danger.
That's
It
brilliant.
was absolute glorious pandemonium, the kind of moment that creates instant legends.
It's a moment of collective catharsis, isn't it? Years of waiting, all released in one 95th minute strike.
And Unai Emery is rightfully the recipient of immense, almost religious adoration. Villa fans are acknowledging his genius and praising his perfect game plan to unsettle Arsenal. The praise is high. We are seeing fans calling him a messiah, and in the raw post-match forums, a fighting genius, recognizing that the level he has the team operating at was genuinely unfathomable just a couple of years ago when he took over.
They see him as the architect of this entire transformation.
They do. And an interesting side note to the celebration was the collective mocking of perceived media bias, something that always unites a passionate fan base.
Ah, yes, the punditry.
Indeed. Villa fans specifically noted that commentator Martin Keown, a well-known former Arsenal figure, gave Martin Odegaard the Man of the Match award, despite Villa having numerous standouts who delivered goals and crucial stops like Buendia, Cash, and Kamara.
Right, which must have felt like a bit of a slap in the face.
They felt it clearly highlighted an unfair focus on the losing team and a reluctance to credit Villa's superior performance and mentality. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about how fans perceive their team's recognition.
And let's not forget the role of Emi Martinez. His save against Odegaard was crucial, and his history with Arsenal adds that layer of delicious rivalry for the Villa supporters.
Absolutely. Martinez received immense praise, not just for the save, but also for his presence. One Villa fan succinctly captured the feeling. "I know which keeper I would rather have," nodding to the debate about whether Arsenal should have kept Martinez when he left the club. He is seen as a high-stakes, clutch performer.
Turning to the Arsenal postmortem, the mood was, understandably, one of deep, deep frustration, bordering on panic. A major discussion point among the fan base was, naturally, the tired debate.
It's a relentless, recurring concern for Arsenal fans. There was widespread discussion focused on player fatigue and Mikel Arteta's rotation policy, or perceived lack thereof.
They point directly to the comparison we made earlier. City excels at rotation, keeping their key players fresh for the run-in, whereas Arsenal players look run into the ground by the time they hit the intense festive schedule.
They're looking for a physical explanation for a mental lapse, suggesting that fatigue is the only logical explanation for that flat second-half performance, where they looked great for 20 minutes but couldn't sustain it to the final whistle.
And this fatigue debate leads directly to severe Arteta criticism regarding his selection choices, particularly the starting lineup against Villa.
We must be impartial here and report what the sources say, even when the language is harsh. The raw post-mortem commentary, particularly on social media, shows the true depth of frustration.
It does.
There was significant, heated debate over the starting lineup, questioning why players like Eze and Marino were chosen over other established options. The timing of the substitutions also drew fire, particularly bringing on youngsters like Miles Lewis-Skelly late on when the game was still tight.
Some comments were extremely harsh.
They were, calling the manager, and I'm quoting from the source material, ass, or accusing him of making absolute crap decisions in terms of selection and strategy, specifically the failure to rotate properly earlier in the season.
So it seems like every choice Arteta made on that day, from the initial selection to the second half adjustments, is being scrutinized through the lens of this painful defeat.
But the overarching sentiment, however, despite the intense disappointment and finger-pointing, is that the team must bounce back immediately. The focus is entirely shifted to the next two massive fixtures, the Champions League trip to Club Brugge and the must-win domestic game against Wolves.
The fans know that dwelling on the loss is the first step toward a collapse, and they are demanding an immediate confidence-restoring response. So, to bring our deep dive to a close, Aston Villa took a massive, potentially defining step forward by defeating the league leaders in a game that was entirely defined by a late show of mentality, tactical genius from Unai Emery, and just relentless desire. They have cemented their place as serious title contenders.
And for Arsenal, it was a painful reminder that the margins are incredibly fine, particularly when key players are missing. Questions remain, and they must be answered quickly, about squad depth, rotation, and whether they possess the mental consistency required to navigate the high-intensity pressure of a tight title race.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Emery's ability to consistently take points off top teams, as evidenced by their impressive track record against Arsenal, and to inject this relentless fighting spirit into his squad is truly transformative. Villa are now proving that they possess not just talent, but the belief and the tactical structure to grind out results even when a draw seems inevitable. They're transforming a 1-1 scenario into a 2-1 victory at the very death. That is the definition of a champion-level trait.
But now for the final provocative thought we leave you with. The result proved that even Arsenal's highly lauded, usually rock-solid defensive record can be unlocked and disrupted, especially when key personnel are absent. So given Arsenal's painful history of end-of-season stumbles and the intense concentration required to challenge the sheer relentless force of Manchester City, can Arsenal rely on their current defensive depth and attacking options to prevent this crucial blip from turning into a familiar, painful collapse?
Or, conversely, should their focus now strategically shift, perhaps, to prioritizing a cup run for silverware in the Champions League or domestic cups, to ensure that this core group of players secures that vital major trophy, relieving the psychological pressure that threatens to derail their entire league campaign? The next few weeks will tell us everything about Arsenal's mentality and Villa's staying power.